Today's video, we're gonna be talking about the importance of knowing your numbers as a house flipper. And we're gonna get into the two main areas that I see where people miss on the numbers, and which ultimately ends up costing them a ton of money and basically flipping a house for no profits and or a loss, which is obviously even worse. I wanna provide a little bit more context on why it's so important to hit those numbers accurately. As flippers, we just operate on pretty thin margins. Most flippers, from my experience, and myself included, operate on roughly a 10% margin. So we're looking to make 10% on our end sales price. So this house behind me here, I just bought this place. This has an ARV of roughly 400,000, might be a little higher, might be like 420, 425, but I'm gonna use 400 just for easy math. Like I mentioned, we're looking to make 10% margin. So if this house sells for 400, once we've done all the work to this place and put it back on the market, that means we're looking to make roughly $40,000. With that said, running a 10% margin and making $40,000 on this house, we can't afford to be wrong on our numbers, whether that's on how much it sells for or how much we budget for in the renovations. Because if we miss on either of those, it can significantly impact our profitability of the deal. So one of the ways I see people missing on their numbers is when it comes down to ARV, basically their end sales price on what they think the property is going to sell for. So in order to make sure you don't make those mistakes, you have to become very familiar with the areas that you are flipping properties in and become a master at comping properties. When comping this property, I can look literally one street over. There are properties that have sold that would suggest a $465,000 ARV. So it would be very easy for me to overcomp this property and say, hey, look, the one next door, or the one on the next street over, sold for 465. It's basically a model match to this one. Easy, it's a 465 ARV. However, this particular property, I put it a 420 ARV. Now you might ask, why did you assign a 420 ARV when the one next door sold for 465? Well, this gets into what I call the gotchas list. There's a lot of different gotchas that I look at on any given property, but this particular one has to do with location. Now, the location of this property behind me here happens to be what I call adjacent to commercial. So we're a few blocks away from commercial properties and like a car lot down this way. And actually right across the street here is also a big apartment complex. What I've found in my career is that commercial adjacent or apartment adjacent or busy street, on a busy street, that can significantly impact the ARV. Where the comp behind us that I mentioned that sold for 465, it's in a much nicer neighborhood. The way the streets are routed, it actually doesn't go out to commercial like this one does. So it's in like a nice little pocket. So usually on a commercial adjacent busy street, across the street from apartment, sometimes it's even just a really junky neighbor or a junky house across the street, that can affect your value up to 10%. At least that's the number I put on it. Usually plug 10% of a value hit, and that depends also on how bad the area is versus the comp you're looking at. Is it next to a highway or is it just next to a double yellow road? Is it like a junky used car lot, or is it like a nice new commercial space? Even a nice new commercial space will affect your ARV in some cases. So for this deal, I penciled a 10% hit on the ARV. So I took it from a 465 number down to a 420,000 ARV. The second area I see people missing a lot is in the actual repair budgets themselves. And I'm not talking about the repairs that you can see with the naked eye either. Well, I could be. If you simply don't know how to budget repairs properly and you don't know how to calculate the cost of a roof, or cost of exterior paint or windows, sure, there can be some user error there. But there are some repairs that can be hidden and come after you buy the property that are unseen. So those can be things like an underground oil tank, because maybe the house used to have an oil furnace. That was a big thing back in the 50s and 60s roughly. Don't quote me on that, but 40s, 50s, 60s, they were using a lot of oil furnaces, and a lot of them are buried underground, so you wouldn't see it with the naked eye. Then when you do go to actually decommission them, they can be costly. And it all depends on if the oil tank leaked, if it didn't leak. So we usually pencil like a $5,000 number for an underground oil tank to be decommissioned. If it is an older siding, meaning it was in the 20s, 30s, or 40s when they used an asbestos-based siding, that can really freak buyers out. Even if you don't do it on the front end and replace it, it'll most likely end up in a repair addendum when the house is back for sale on the market and you're reviewing offers and you end up accepting an offer during the inspection period, you'll most likely get hit with a repair addendum that says replace the siding or give a credit for the siding or something like that. So those are a couple gotcha items that you need to be on the lookout for. This particular property doesn't have either of those. We're not worried about an underground oil tank. We're not worried about asbestos siding. But the one thing we did have to pencil for as a contingency was the foundation. And when I say foundation, I mean a slab. This particular property is built on a slab, not a traditional foundation. And how I was able to spot this was not by walking in the property and seeing in the bedrooms or living space or whatever and seeing that there was actual slab cracking taking place. And at this point, we don't really know 100% if there is, but something tipped me off that this area, meaning this neighborhood, this street, might be prone to slab issues. How did I know that? One sign, kind of glaring sign, when I first walked up to the property is the issue with this driveway right here. As you can see, it is absolutely cracked into 1,000 pieces. And I don't know if the camera does it justice, but there's multiple almost gullies in the driveway where there's been a ton of settling here that has taken place. So that makes me go, okay, well, if there's settling taking place here, could there be any settling taking place where the slab itself is? Another question is, hey, when this house was built, did the same guy who poured this driveway and did all the concrete prep for this driveway, did he also do the slab that the house is built on? Those are all questions that after I've looked and seen so many deals, I usually will associate any sort of cracking driveways or patios with potential issues, whether it's minor or severe with the house, whether that's slab or foundation. Another thing I saw is I actually found a comp that was like 4 doors down, and it sold a couple years ago, and it was a major fixer, a lot like this one is here, and the carpet had been pulled out of the property, so it was all of the slab was exposed, and in those photos there was major cracking on this comp as well. To me, I go, hey, maybe it was built by the same guy, maybe this area has soil issues where there's some settling taking place, but either way, I'm not saying there is issues here, but it's just something that I have to pencil in to my repair budget, or at least have a contingency in there. If and when that happens, I'm not surprised by it and I'm not going backwards in this deal. So where does someone get hurt on this deal and why knowing your numbers is so important? Like I mentioned, I penciled a contingency just in case there is some sort of slab issue. So I penciled for a $10,000 contingency, basically safety net, in the event that the slab is indeed cracking once we actually pull the carpet up and see. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything is good. Even if there is some cracks, maybe it's very minor where we can epoxy in the cracks, we can do some self-leveling of the floors, and everything is good. But still, I planned for the worst just so that I don't get surprised for it later. In addition to that, I adjusted the ARV like we talked about earlier. I took the ARV from a 465 down to a 420 number. So now I have a 420 ARV. I have an extra $10,000 contingency in my repair budget. So we were able to make an educated decision and a confident decision when we're buying this property. The reason I continue to bring up these numbers is going back to what I talked about, how flippers operate off a thin 10% margin. You could see how just misjudging the ARV by that 10%, just that little bit, just by not taking into consideration that this particular property is across the street from apartments and down the road from commercial, just that little switch could be the difference in us making money or losing money on this deal. And then if you take it even a step further and say, okay, if someone were to buy this deal expecting like a 450, 465 ARV, most likely they won't hit it. It's gonna sell for around a 420, 4.25 number. And then if they didn't take into consideration the amount of repairs needed and if they didn't have a $10,000 contingency in that number, on this particular deal, if you were running numbers at a 465, didn't take into consideration the possible contingency, you could wind up in a pretty sticky situation where you're going backwards when you sell this deal, and that is never a fun place to be. I've went backwards in many deals throughout my career, which is why that's how I developed the gotcha list and all the different things that I look through before buying a property. That's how I know that, hey, if a driveway is cracking, maybe there's some slab cracking in there or issues with the neighborhood. That's how I know all this. I wanted to share it with you guys because, again, this is an area where I see people miss, I see people get burned, and I don't want that to happen to you. Guys, if you haven't done so already, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. I take you out into the field every single week. I show you properties like this that we just bought. I show you mid-stage when properties are being fixed up, and then when they're fully renovated and back on the market, I even go into the numbers with you. So if you want to follow me along the way and see these projects as they transform, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. All right, see ya.